Jonathan, if Ricciardo overachieves in the AlphaTauri and Perez can't shake off his struggles, could Checo be the next driver to get sacked by Red Bull?
As Colby mentioned earlier, this is a what have you done for me lately game. And really, when you talk about Checo, like he hasn't done much lately, unfortunately, Verstappen's been on fire, winning almost every race and kind of been the default winner of sorts as of lately. Perez just hasn't been there. So I think if Ricciardo can go out and really shine in a car like AlphaTauri, we've been talking all about it's been the worst car on the grid. It's been terrible. It's been awful. You got the report coming in from the test as well. Yeah, I mean, that definitely puts Perez's feet to the fire. I think he has to perform. He has to show that he's capable to stand up to Verstappen, just like we saw with Rosberg against Hamilton back in 2016. He was able to perform. He was able to stand up. Perez just needs to show more of that because Ricciardo, I mean, he is about the same age as Perez as well. So it's a very equivalent comparison. And if Ricciardo is showing more than Perez, then I certainly see where Red Bull will be coming from in putting him in.
And it's a crazy world we live in when we're talking about a driver who's currently second in points in a world championship, and we're discussing whether or not he's going to be with the team next year. I'm not sure if they would do another driver swap before the end of the season, because it seems like everything is perfectly fine in the constructors right now. Max can basically, I saw this earlier today that say Max can basically just win the constructors on his own. Doesn't really need Checo at this point, since he's been so dominant. But it's interesting to see the turn here from Daniel Ricciardo when he decided to take a sabbatical for Formula One. He wasn't interested in a seat like this at AlphaTauri. He only wanted to be in a competitive car, and it makes me wonder why Ricciardo took this AlphaTauri seat. I'm thinking the only reason why he took this seat is he sees it as a potential path all the way back up to the top in Red Bull, where he can go out there, compete for podiums again, race wins, compete for the drivers' championship, and all of that. If there wasn't an opportunity for Daniel Ricciardo to potentially go all the way back up to the top to compete with Red Bull Racing, I don't think we see him in this AlphaTauri. See, I think he views this as a way to reprove himself to Helmut Marko, Christian Horner again, that although the last few years of my Formula One career haven't been that great, I'm still the same driver that won races with you before and help you score a lot of points. And so I really think that there's a potential path here for Daniel Ricciardo to get back to where he used to be, towards the top of the Formula One grid. And as for Sergio Perez, it's been really crazy seeing him fall off massively after the first few races of the season. It seems like nothing has gone his way, and to see Max doing what he's doing, continuing to dominate, get pole position after pole position, fast lap after fast lap, race win after race win, while Perez is struggling to do the same thing in that really wonderfully fast car that they have. And if Perez isn't going to improve soon, I'm sure. And Daniel Ricciardo surprises in AlphaTauri would not surprise me if Dr. Helmut Marko decides to move on and sack Perez at the end of the 2023 season. I'm not sure if they do it before this season ends, but who knows? Did we think they would sack Nick de Vries? I know we heard all the rumors, but with Red Bull these days, and anything is possible. And I know they're kind of dismissing all the claims that Perez's seat is going to be in jeopardy before the end of 2024. But we know nowadays length of contract doesn't really matter. So anything is possible. So Sergio Perez, a lot of pressure on him moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, massive pressure. And if Ricciardo does come in and is a regular point scorer through the end of the season, and Perez's form as it is at the moment, he's racing well, but he's giving himself a lot of work to do, as Ben mentioned, from all these terrible qualifying efforts that he's had over the last 4 or 5 races. So, there was all that talk at the beginning of the year that, Red Bull got the best car, but at least we might have a team-on-team battle for the championship, like back in the Hamilton and Rosberg days at Mercedes, for instance. But it just faded away, and there was a story. I didn't read the story, but there was a story up on motorsport.com today, and the headline was something along the lines of, Perez, I'm not worried about my seat. Well, his outside voice might be saying that, but I think his inside voice might be a little bit worried, especially if Ricciardo does get in and get on scoring some points and putting in some decent performances. If those two get together on track at Hungary during the race or at Spa, then the cameras will be on them, you can be sure, to see what happens. We'll have to see what, as Kobe mentioned, contracts is contracts. They can be written as quickly as they can be screwed up and thrown in the bin. So Perez is signed through to the end of next season at the moment. Obviously, we know, as we've talked about, how cutthroat the Red Bull driver program is, and they've got half of the Formula 2 grid sat there waiting potentially to come into one of those two seats. I'm not sure Tsunoda's got much of a life left in him if he doesn't pick up his game, especially when they've not got Honda stickers on the side of the car in a couple of years and they've got Ford ones. So there could be a lot of shuffling going around in the, well, 3 of the 4 Red Bull seats over the next couple of years.
So I will give Checo credit for this. His recovery drives from his poor qualifying efforts have been pretty decent. 4th in Spain, 6th in Canada, 3rd making it back onto the podium in Austria, and then 6th of his past race in Great Britain. So you can give him a little bit of credit for that. Also picked up the fastest lap in Canada, just seeing there as well. So he's done a nice job recovering from poor qualifying efforts. But at the same time, if you're not making it out of Q2 or even Q1 in a car that Max Verstappen's won 8 of the first 10 races with, the last 6 in a row, the only times he hasn't won was when Perez beat him and won those 2 races himself. It's certainly not a great look, and you can't make excuses for it. And, we were talking about the freeze this entire segment here and how he only got 10 races to prove himself. This is Sergio Perez's 3rd season in the Red Bull. And as Kobe mentioned, maybe this is a sign of just how dominant that car is. He's still 2nd in points. It's not like he's 2nd in points hanging on by a thread. He's got a 19-point advantage right now over Fernando Alonso, from what I can tell. So it's almost a full race that he's got a buffer to Alonso. I suppose if Alonso won a race and Perez wasn't in the points, then he'd overtake him for 2nd in a championship. But it's crazy, like Kobe mentioned, that we're talking about a guy who's comfortably 2nd in a championship right now, and maybe his seat isn't safe. But that just speaks to how dominant that car is. But again, I don't know. I think of Sergio Perez, and I thought of Valtteri Bottas the same way as well at Mercedes. I think of them as like the perfect number 2 drivers, because on their best day, they can go out and they can get you a win here or there. They can be a comfortable 2nd driver in that car that's going to perform reliably, all right, and good enough to the point where you don't have to be concerned about winning the constructors if you're a dominant team that year. But they're never going to challenge the Lewis Hamiltons and the Max Verstappens of the world for a world championship over the course of a full season. And that's why, personally, I think Nico Rosberg's one of the more underrated drivers of our generation, because he did beat Lewis Hamilton in 2016 over the course of a full season for a world championship. That's something Valtteri Bottas and now Sergio Perez really haven't come very close to doing with the opportunities that they've been given to match their legendary teammates here. So I do feel a little bit for Sergio Perez, because I think he's done better in that car than Gasly did or Albon did before him. He's won a handful of races here and there. But at the same time, if you're struggling to make Q3 in a car that is so dominant that Max Verstappen's doing what he's doing and that Daniel Ricciardo reportedly would have been on the front row, having not sat in a Formula 1 car the entire first half of the year, he's got to get his act together, because like we mentioned at the start of the show, this is a ruthless driver program here at Red Bull. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a seasoned veteran. Helmut Marko and his company over at Red Bull, they're not going to hesitate to make moves if they see fit.